And I could tell that I wasn't nailing it because the boss wasn't happy, but he didn't fire me because there was enough songs that sounded pretty good that I kept my job. But I could tell he was chucking a few out of the set. And I just thought, hang on a minute, my ego is not having that. So it was like a challenge. It's like somebody saying to you, you can't do something. And if someone says to me, I can't do something, I go, no, hang on a minute now. Hold on, just like hold my beer.
This is Rob Ruckus.
Hey, this is Kate Clover.
Hey guys, it's Nick Collins here from The Effect and Better Strangers.
Hi, my name's Madeline Rose.
Hey, it's Ben McKelvey.
It's Tim Howard here from Mike and the Mechanics.
Hello, I'm Amanda Lehman.
I'm Billy Harvey.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Casey Sampson from the band Twist Stop.
Hey, it's Tony from Fastball.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isaiah Mitchell.
Hey, guys, it's Matt here from the White Lakes.
You're listening to Almost Famous Magazine.
Come join us for this interview. Check it out, Almost Famous Magazine.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us for the hang here on Almost Famous Magazine. We brought you a lot of fabulous musicians and artists recently, and I'm so excited because this took us a little bit to get together, but this is someone really special, and I'm really excited that she's joining us today. So I want to introduce you to Yolanda Charles. Now, she's a powerhouse musician. We could go on for probably an hour naming everyone she's worked with, but just to name a few, you've got Paul Weller, you may have heard of him, Dave Stewart, Robbie Williams, Mick Jagger, the Waterboys, Hans Zimmer, and my New York accent, and Squeeze, and so many more. And not only is she played with some of the greatest musicians, that we have in the world, she also gives lessons. She writes a Substack. She finds time to garden, and hopefully somewhere in between, she gets a good night rest. So I'm looking forward to everyone getting to know her and learning about her career, and a great hang today. So Yolanda, welcome, and thanks for making time for us.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Now, you've had an incredible career, as I mentioned, but what I really wanted to do is go back to the beginning, right? The spark that sent you on your journey. And was it that when you were younger, did music find you, or did you find music, and how did it all start for you?
My family were just big music fans, and I'm a music fan. I had my favourite albums when I was a kid, and my dad used to allow me to put the LPs on when I was young. So he showed me how to use raise the arm of the stylus and put it down carefully. And that was a bit of fun in itself, just the actual doing, putting the record on. And I developed a love for music because my dad had this deep love for music, and my mum too. And I'm the youngest of four, so all of them had their favourite genres. They kind of competed, so they didn't all like. It's like a football team almost. Somebody likes the Reds, somebody likes the Blues. So I had one of my brothers was a big fan of lovers rock, sort of London, sort of softer romantic reggae, and my other brother was a big fan of more sort of R&B, American R&B, but more what would be called R&B today. So not rhythm and blues, but actually more sort of soul, 80s soul. So I kind of toe dipped and liked everybody's music. And I think that's what started me off on my path anyway.
So who are some of those artists that you had records of back in the day?
Well, being the youngest, I was just listening to the records they bought. So my eldest brother was a big fan of everything that was 80s soul at the time. D-Train, Change, any bands that had, hits around that time, but stuff that wasn't necessarily mainstream, because we didn't really get that kind of music on mainstream radio. We would listen to pirate radio stations. And I didn't just say the popular names because everybody knows who they are, the Luther Vandrosses and all of those people, of course. But then, we kind of had a whole interest in everybody, and we only really got exposed to that music through the pirate radio stations. And then the next youngest or next eldest brother, he was into the Lovers Rock stuff. So Janet Kay, Carol Thompson, Gina de Bambo, some reggae, some more sort of dub, I-Roy, U-Roy, King Tubby. It's just, if people like the reggae, they'll know these artists are. And then my mum's a big Bob Marley fan, so I became a big Bob Marley fan too. And my dad liked a bit of everything, but his main thing was James Brown, mixed with Frank Sinatra. Sometimes would come on. Tony Bennett would come on. My mum had a couple of records that was I didn't quite understand how come she had these records, but Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich. I don't know why she had those records, but she loved them. And my mum was really into ska as well, so British influenced reggae, kind of mixed between British styles and Jamaican style. So it was quite eclectic, but all in the kind of Caribbean, Black American, jazz kind of styles. That's where we were kind of limited into that area, but that area is so rich and diverse and within itself that I feel like I got a really good start, you know.
Oh no, that's a great selection. I know a lot of those artists and love their music. So how did that tactile experience of putting the needle on the record translate into you picking up an instrument and deciding which instrument to choose?
Well, if I knew my dad had a favourite record, I think that I wanted to please him, so I would offer to put a record on for him, and he wouldn't tell me what record to put on. I would choose one that I think he would be in the mood for or that he would like. So I kind of already as a child, I kind of had a perception of choosing the right music for the mood kind of thing. So if he was tired, I'd put something more, maybe a crooner on. If he was in a party mood after a couple of rums, I put on something like some James Brown. He'd probably get up and dance. And the fact that I could put a record on and he would get up and dance to it, and I'd chosen it. He didn't tell me to take it off or change it, you know, whatever. I used to feel the power. I could feel the power of that as a kid. The power of music, the power of making the right choices and listening, understanding, and you know, figuring out what's going to work for the moment. And I think that translated into how I play my instrument. But in terms of the instrument I chose, I think you could tell that most of the music we listened to was bass-led, apart from the jazz stuff. That's vocal-led often, or the melody top-line led, with the drums expressing the most, and then the bass kind of being solid, like the kind of bedrock of the time keeping and the kind of pace. The drums don't really do that in jazz. It's more expressive. So I think that my ear was attuned to music that had bass in a prominent role in the music from my home, my family life. So it's no surprise that when I did finally pick up a bass, which was around 14, it immediately felt right. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Sometimes things find us in mysterious ways, right?
True.
Right. I mean, music. I see it as an evolution. I mean, there's so many people, and I'm just barely talented enough to have started on trumpet and figured out how to play guitar and things like that. But there's so many people who are multiple instrumentalists, right? And that's that evolution of being able to just naturally find the notes and figure them out. So over the course of learning to play and all of that great music, were there any musicians at the time who were really influential and you took pieces of what they were doing performance-wise to incorporate them into kind of your feel and your style to create your own path and your own sound?
No, funnily enough, because I didn't come from a musical background. I didn't understand that. I listened to music as a fan only. I didn't try to emulate anyone. And even now, I've transcribed very few pieces of music. If I've learned anybody else's bass lines, it's for work. And now that I'm a teacher more so, I transcribe for my students. But I don't have the upbringing or the kind of sense of copying as a way to learn. And that really did me a disservice at the beginning of my career, because I didn't have that dialogue in my playing. The kind of expected fills, the expected styles, all the things that people could just do. I hadn't learned to do them. And I didn't have a teacher that taught that stuff. He taught me, my first and only real teacher that I had at 16, 17. He just showed me some technique and some scales and stuff. He didn't actually show me playing styles. So I had to develop my playing style very slowly, very gradually through trial and error, and unintentionally as well, which made life very difficult. But there was a massive advantage to that, which was that I ended up developing my own style. And I don't sound like other people. If I sound like anyone, it's like it would be Paul Jackson. When I play some funk fusion, I like that kind of 70s style of 16th notes. But I wasn't listening to Paul Jackson when I was young. I hadn't even heard Herbie Hancock outside of electric boogaloo kind of style. You know, Rocket. Do you remember Rocket?
Yeah.
That was the first time I heard Herbie Hancock. Right, so despite his rich beginnings, I didn't have that exposure to him directly. So I wasn't influenced by Headhunters, which is where Paul Jackson, the bass player, that was in Headhunters, and he's most known for that. So I wasn't influenced by him when I was a child. If anyone, in terms of just by listening, osmosis, you get influenced by exposure, it would be Family Man Barrett from the Wailers, because I listened to a lot of Bob Marley, but I never learnt the bass lines, funnily enough, which is crazy that I didn't even try. A couple that picked up, like, I don't know, Natural Mystic, da-doom, doom, doom, da-doom, doom, doom. It's such a great bass line to play because it's so simple. It's really dependent on feel and dynamics, and I could pick that one up by ear. And Marcus Miller, I was listening to Luther Vandross through my brother's collection, and so Marcus was all over that. And I listened to him a lot through listening to Luther Vandross, but again, I never tried to play any Marcus Miller at that point. So they're in there, but they're not directly kind of lifted from, you know.
No, that's great. I mean, there are many ways to learn how to create a sound.
Yeah.
You know, what is it? Flattery's
imitation.
Imitation's the greatest form of flattery.
Yeah.
But we all have to find our way. Now, you brought something up about what kind of the limitation that was early on in your career.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I think is a valuable discussion is during that period, or actually in your career, and you had to learn a piece of music.
Yeah.
Right? What's the hardest thing you've ever had? What's the hardest piece you've had to learn to get it the way that it needed to be performed right? And because of the way that you have evolved, what were some of the skills that you had to develop in order to overcome the challenges to learn it and get it right?
Well, I wouldn't say there's a piece of music. I'd say it was an approach that I had to learn. Because when I was about 17, I'd been playing for about 2 years, and my ear was pretty good. And I had some reading skills then. I'm getting my reading skills back now, but when I first started, I could read better than I could in the middle, because in the middle of my career, I didn't need to read at all. So it all slipped. But because I could read a bit, and my ear was okay, I taught myself how to play Donna Lee, which was by Charlie Parker, and it was the Jaco Pastorius version that everybody knew from his solo album. And I could play that at 17. Not great, not perfectly, but it's quite, it's difficult to get around playing a sax kind of solo over sax solo, sax head melody over on the bass, on a 4-string bass, because there's a lot of jumps around. So I had that kind of like start, and then got into soul funky bands and bands that took some technique development. So I learned how to slap. I taught myself how to slap some sort of way. It wasn't a kind of strict way that everybody else does it, but again, I was self-taught, so I didn't really have the classical, technical kind of way of doing things. I mean classical as in classic, not the style of music, just to clarify. Because there's no classical slap, last time I checked. All right.
But wait a minute. This could be a moment. This could be a moment where she is creating something brand new right in front of us.
A new
classical
genre, right
slap.
here. Right. I can hear it now. A bit of bark slap. But I'm going to go and slap some bark like after this interview now, just to just be completely nauseating. All right. So I had this sort of level of technical ability that meant that I could play with people a lot older than me. I could play some funk. I could really get into it. And then I joined Paul Weller's band, and none of that stuff was needed. And in fact, it was a hindrance in a lot of ways to the actual music So you didn't want to impose your style onto a music. You wanted to adopt the style that was right for the music. So in terms of difficulty, I'd say that it was really hard to let go of my own kind of developing style and adopt the correct approach, or close as I could get it to the correct approach to fit into the music with the right sound, the right approach, the right fills. Taste-wise, I didn't have that listening background, so I didn't actually understand taste-wise what was appropriate. So I would play inappropriate fills, add an inappropriate sounding bass at the beginning of my work with Paul Weller. Gradually, I morphed and graduated, I'd say, into the right kind of space, but even still I wasn't quite that bass player that grew up with the music, so it was very difficult. But ironically I ended up working in rock and pop for the next 25-30 years, and not in the funk soul genre. I never needed a bit of slap, I never needed any of that stuff, but I had it there just cooking away, and nobody wanted it because they wanted eighth notes which paid for my house. Rock pop, eighth notes paid for my house. That's one of my things I say at the lectures, and it makes the bass players laugh because they're working so hard on high level technique. They all want to become session players, and I say to them, look, if you can do what I can do, 10 or more different ways of playing a simple bass line with different inflections and nuances across the bar, make it feel ahead of the beat, behind the beat, on top, make the dynamics influence the drummer's feel, accelerate here, and do all of this definitely fine-tuning stuff with a simple bass line, like just playing eighth notes, which would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and in other words, duh, 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 on the bass. If you can actually get into the detail of how to play that simplest of bass lines with a lot of subtle differences, you will be an employed musician, an employed bass player, because that is basically a bass player's superpower, is the nuance and the detail.
So that's the eighth notes pay for homes. Anybody looking to become a successful musician, eighth notes pay for homes.
Eighth notes pay for homes.
I'm fascinated by what you had to say, because going back to you had to unlearn.
Yeah.
Right. The biggest struggle was you put all this energy and effort to learn, and then you had to let go.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that we've reached a point in music today where people have a little bit, for the most part, have forgotten that less is more. And that letting go piece, right? There's so many ways to jam so much into a sound space these days, right?
Yeah.
But that
true.
Less is more approach, and finding it within yourself, which is not easy. I can't imagine how the struggle of going, wait a minute, but I put all this effort and energy not to let it go was like. How did that feel when you had that realization that, you had to take that step back after putting energy?
Yeah, I mean, I was just focused on what I couldn't do. I wasn't actually concerned with what I could do at the time. I was more concerned with why I couldn't play the parts to make the boss happy at the time, because I could tell that he wasn't happy. He was pulling songs out of the set that were technically correct, I suppose. The notes were in the right places and stuff, but I was missing things, and I think it was down to how I was playing the parts. And because the drummer was on the record, he was the same drummer, and everyone else that was there knew their stuff. So I felt that as a newer member, I was probably my influence in the music that was making him kind of go, no, this isn't working. So I was really focused in on, if my ego was like attacked in any way, it was attacked from the point of view of, hang on a minute, I should be able to play anything, really. I've been practicing for hours and hours and hours for a couple of years, and I had been, because I was a 6-hour-a-day girl, I had a day job, a part-time job, and no schooling really past 18. So I just practiced a lot and did my little part-time job to pay towards the family housekeeping, and that was it. Music and a bit of responsibilities, and so I put all this time in, and then I came to music that technically was far easier than the jazz stuff I'd been trying to play, and I could tell that I wasn't nailing it because the boss wasn't happy, but he didn't fire me, because there was enough songs that sounded pretty good. that I kept my job, but I could tell he was chucking a few out of the set, and I just thought, hang on a minute, my ego is not having that. So it was like a challenge. It's like somebody saying to you, you can't do something, and if someone says to me, I can't do something, I go, no, hang on a minute now, hold on, just like hold my beer, right? You're like, I'll be back. And so that's what I did. I went home and I did one of the best kind of skill development starting points that I think I could have possibly done with my career, because I was young. I was 21, 22 maybe, and my ego was triggered to the positive, but it was small enough at the point, being young, that I was still modest enough, humble enough to admit that I didn't have it all. I didn't have all the answers, and that's important. Is that you can't really create space for learning if you think you know everything already. So I had that space for learning, so I went in and deconstructed that baseline by just listening a lot, really, really getting into detail and appreciating and understanding what in the way the bass player had played worked. What was he doing that made it work so that that record sounds like that? And what was the bass player's contribution? And I did it a couple of nights in a row after each rehearsal. And one day at rehearsal, he called, this is Paul Weller, called one of the tunes that he'd previously been rejecting. And it stayed in the set from that moment onwards. And Paul didn't actually say anything like, "Oh, you've nailed it now," or whatever, because that's not the British way. You don't get a good job from British guys, man. You just get a less of the sardonic wit and more kind of like
no participation medal.
Yeah, exactly. No criticism means that they like you. Let's leave it that way. But the drummer Steve White did come up to me and say to me, "Oh, that track is sounding really great. What did you do?" So he noticed, and since then it gave me such a sense of direction about the power of what bass actually does in the song. And the power of what a bass player who knows how to change and adjust their playing style, the power that the bass player has to really shape the music, to influence its feel, and to influence the other musicians in the way they play as well, without saying any words at all, just doing it with notes and dynamics and intention,
Now, I love the fact that we share kind of an attitude. Tell me I can't do something, and I'm gonna prove you wrong. I mean that I think for anyone who's worked really hard to find success, you have to have that somewhere in your soul. It has to be woven into the fabric of your body. Because let's be honest, it's too easy to give up, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody else wins.
Yeah.
So I truly admire that you've got that because yeah, it's, there are a lot of musicians who never find out why it didn't work out. And then they don't have that bit to learn from. Right. You learned through it to make sure that you rose up and elevated yourself to keep the gig and then to take that in other places. I'm kind of curious about your creativity. Mm-hmm. Where do you find it? Because I know that you're open on social media about finding peacefulness and harmony in your life and your gardening and all those great things. Mm-hmm. Where do you find the things in life that bring you that joy to be open to create and then accept what you're creating?
Well, you know what? I don't know entirely, but one thing I do know is that I have a kind of mind that cannot help but just see patterns everywhere, and also the connections between things in terms of referencing. So I literally see and hear referencing, memory triggers, and just connectivity in everything, always. So it's crazy levels. It's literally like I can't walk down the street without being inspired. I can't have a conversation without being inspired to write a new poem or to write a new song or to... You've been talking about bass. I've been thinking about what I just said while I'm talking, and now I know what I'm going to do after this interview. Do you know what I mean? It's like I've got so many ideas about what I'm going to do next now. And I think that...
Classical slap.
Well, that I picked up and then I put it straight back down again. It's just that ain't gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. That's just like that's sacrilege, I tell you. So I think that we can actually create that space for ourselves as well. That space for those inspirations to pop into our minds without, inadvertently, by noticing. It's really about noticing. It's about being aware and awake and not just going through life caught up with the inner voice, caught up with stories that we tell ourselves, caught up with plans and future making or past reflection, but actually noticing where you are right this second and absorbing it, and also kind of like processing it as well. Don't just let it pass you by. Because within every moment of interaction with people, conversations, walking down the street, noticing things, there's so much to see and inspire, and also that will be related back to what you've already experienced yourself. And when you make those connections and they become kind of normal, then you're always fed, just constantly fed with ideas and reasons to be happy, really, as well, joy. Also reminders of poignant moments, even when they're bittersweet. It just keeps flowing. But you have to be open, and to be open is to be awake, to notice and to absorb, and not just allow things to just skip by.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This technological world that we live in brings us a lot of abilities and capabilities, but it also, I think, that takes us out of time.
Yeah.
Right? It captures and takes it away, and it doesn't, for whatever reason, it doesn't foster being necessarily in that moment together. It is so much distraction. So I totally understand where you're coming from there.
Yeah. It's a tricky one, because I find the internet as a gift. It's that evolving library of information. It's a way to connect people, and I actually really love it. It's changed a huge amount of my it's changed my direction and my potential, my thinking about my potential. I mean, without the internet, it would be far more difficult to do the things that I want to do. And I say that as somebody who released an album in 2003 and another one in 2012. And these were both really before the internet took off for me, because I know that in 2012, I had built my own I had some help with getting my own personal website up. So it was all there then, but it wasn't as accessible. Those templates didn't exist. You needed a proper web designer, and that was expensive, etc. Now life has got so many possibilities. So I'm not against it, but I think that the internet, the existence of the internet and the existence of technology, it's calling. It's a call to sort of arms, shall we say, of responsibility that we have to take really, really better, I'd say, responsibility for ourselves. We can't just do things. We have to be more intentional now than ever before, because like you say, we get captured. Our attention gets captured, and before you know it, we've wasted yet another day doing very little because we've been watching too many socials, or we got caught up in somebody else's story. We feel bad about ourselves now. It's affecting our mental health, distracting, all the things that people have spoken about it before. But the gift that it gives us is so good, which is why it's popular. We do have a huge amount of responsibility now to be way more intentional about how we use it. We have to create this behavioural management. When we adopt these tools, we have to, because if we don't, we know what will happen. Gradually, more and more of the things that are not good about it will become more the common state of our being, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you ever notice people go, "Oh, I thought life was simpler 30 years ago," right? Well, they didn't have all the distractions. Was it better? I don't know, because you get all of the byproduct at the same time. Right? You get the byproduct of what these tools and these services bring to you. And what for me is fascinating is your intention is to be a musician and a creator. But did you ever think you would be in a situation where you're making TikTok videos, Instagram videos, you're having to put together images, you're having to repackage, do all these things. And then that in and of itself takes away from the thing that you cherish the most. It's kind of this weird conundrum.
It is, but we're in a bit of a transition phase right now. So I'm not thinking that things are going to stay the same. I think we're going to get more specialization will return to a certain degree. The reason why everybody, musicians say, for instance, are trying to be, wear 50 hats is because of the cost of things. And I know that AI is going to be one of the things that helps, relieve off of some of the heaviness of the weight, of this many jobs we have to do. But there is a thing about, the river is traveling downwards and everybody's jumped in the river, which is the internet, and it's traveling in a direction, and we therefore are in that direction, and we think that that's the way we have to travel. We don't have to do that. I think over time people are going to understand that they can cherry pick a bit more. They can choose what they do. And, I'm talking about, I don't want to be cryptic about it because I don't want to make pronouncements. I don't really know either. We're in transition, so I don't know what's going to happen. But one of my plans is not to swim in the stream with everyone else entirely because of burnout, of jack of all, master of none, half-cocked kind of artwork, half-cocked videos, half-cocked content. People who are doing really great with the content have either got incredibly engaging content or they've got incredibly well-presented, high-fidelity content that's glossy and got all of that. But these people are spending a huge amount of their time doing that. That's their job. They're not necessarily a creator outside of the internet, whereas we are. And we don't need the internet to create. It's only a vehicle for us. Whereas that's their business model, is the internet, is their social media. So they are focused in on that. We can't really compete for attention with people who've made content creation as their main focus. And I don't think we should be thinking about that in terms of competing. I do think there's a different way. I think the first port of call, more so than anything else, is the quality and originality of the music that we're making. We can no longer get away with making music that sounds like it could have been made by AI, because that's what musicians have been doing for the last 20 years. With too much automation, not enough personality, too many samples, too much cleaning up, too much auto-tune, not enough actual heartfelt renditions of things, originality of the lyrics, compositions, chordal progressions, melodies. Everything just sounds a little bit like itself, and it has done so for, 20 years or more. I remember when Stargate and other production companies came along, production teams, and they just homogenized pop. Scott Aiken and Waterman, that kind of Minogue, Jason, I don't know if you remember all of that stuff. But anyway, that sound started to, because they became very successful. Scott Aiken and Waterman were the British version. Stargate was the European, I think, maybe Swedish, I'm not sure, version. And this kind of like homogenization started to creep in, where everybody wanted to sound a bit like the guys that had the biggest success. And I feel like that Euro pop sound, which is how I describe it, once it got adopted by the Americans, we were screwed. When I started hearing the Americans sounding like Euro pop, I was like, oh my God, we're in trouble now. And we've been in the same trouble for quite some time. And that is like large language model learning from each other. Not AI, but humans doing this to each other. They're literally cherry picking each other's stuff, regurgitating it, repackaging it, calling it something else. It's got to the point now, which is what's going to happen to AI, is that musicians, humans, before AI, have been sampling each other, data mining each other's music, creating the same sort of songs to the point now where the 4-chord song is a thing. The same 4 chords in slightly different order is a thing, because they've basically data mined themselves to a point where there's not enough new data in their own compositions to create something new. So they're now all sounding like each other. That's what's going to happen to AI eventually, because it's data mining from, stuff that's got limits. And so we've seen there's lots of programs about this. What happens with AI when it keeps on mining from its own data, it starts to get like worse and worse and worse and worse. This is what's happened to music. So my point is, musicians, originality, taking risks, being adventurous, trying a bit harder to really tap into their heart, their actual creativity. That is the thing we need to think about, because the music is first, and then after that you can think about promoting it, and you don't have to have a huge amount of followers to have some traction in a career. You just need the right amount of people and some quality content, as in music. Oh God, content, music.
Well, okay. Now, just everybody, that segue was not planned because she has dovetailed this perfectly into the story of. I think this is really the story of your last kind of 4 years and coming out of, the pandemic and the shift in your career. And in my opinion, because many people probably haven't seen that you're also on LinkedIn, which is a business professional network. This one right here has taken her music career and figured out how to master the business of it while still being creative. And in the last 4 years, you've had to figure out how to start again, rebuild, and getting into what she just said about that human side of it. You now have a band, Project PH, that I think everybody should hear about. So let's start to talk about that, because that's the here and now piece of this, right?
Yes.
And I think there's an obvious answer, but I want you to kind of tell the story a little bit.
Okay.
You decide you've been with all these big musicians, you're going out on your own, you're gonna carve your own way, be your own person, be that distinct individual, and you start to put musicians together, and you land in like jazz and funk, right? So how did that become the core essence of what you plan to do as your sound? And then the people you brought into it, I think it's important to talk about the additive nature of that experience and the people who are in Project PH and what's going on with that, and give some people some food for thought on why they should listen.
Well, that's quite a lot. I mean, the story starts at the start of lockdown. In terms of this particular project, but how I ended up in this genre is because I never left it. My session career was in rock and pop, and I ended up playing with some great musicians, having some amazing experiences. Playing with Mick Jagger and Dave Stewart for the Alfie soundtrack was quite something, because it was pretty thrilling. The B.B. King album, I did his 80th anniversary album, and that had Eric Clapton, Roger Daltrey, Van Morrison on it, that I played on those tracks, and that was a big thrill. And then the Hans Zimmer work as well. But the Hans Zimmer work was so different from everything I'd ever done before, but none of it was funk, soul, reggae, and kind of rock fusion, which is what I was into. So all through that time that I just described, this is 2000s, even earlier, the 90s, I had been writing little bits and bobs. There's a song coming out of my album soon, The Current Band, that I wrote in 1993. That, I perform it in the band, and there's another one that I wrote in 2000 that's going to be on the album. So this has all been cooking along. And 2020 was that beginning of that period where all of us were locked down and we couldn't tour. And I just signed a contract with Sting. I was about to go on the road. 2019. I met him. I had met him before, but we met up to have a little meeting about doing the work. And then 2020 came along, signed the contract, and I had planned to go out on tour with him for as long as he needed me. And it turned out he didn't need me at all. Because he actually needed a bass player because he'd injured his arm. And it was just really unfortunate. I was a bit horrified for him, horrible injury. And I was going to fill in. And then during lockdown, his arm healed. And during 2020 into 21, I didn't know what I was doing. I had Hans Zimmer's tour poised. I was still doing some work with Squeeze. I had Sting's tour kind of there poised as well. And then almost overnight, in the space of like 2 or 3 months in 2021, all of the work disappeared. That was the end. And one of them I had opted out of because of vaccines. I didn't want to take the vaccine, so I decided that it was my choice to do that or not. They had their conditions and I wasn't going to meet them, so I decided to opt out. And the other one was that Sting's arm got better, and so that was that. When I got to that stage where I thought, oh my God, I've just lost a huge amount of work and the, attached income that goes with gigs of that nature, I was terrified. And I was also like thinking, well, what? It doesn't get any bigger than Sting, does it?
that could have been another house.
Yeah. So I was just like, if you get a gig like that and then it goes away again, anything you get after that, it's going to be one of the dinosaurs, one of the sort of big guys or girls that have been around since the 70s or something, or the 80s. And there's not a lot of those people around hiring right now, let's say. So, and I wasn't in contention for anything. So I just thought, well, okay, that's maybe, something that I've lost, but what am I going to fill in that space? And I decided to just resume working on my album. And not an album, just writing really with my guitarist at the time. And we basically came up with enough kind of cool songs that I thought maybe I should form a band around this again. And around that time, the booker at Ronnie Scott's had got in touch with me to start doing my jam sessions again, because I used to do these nice cool little jam sessions in Soho in London. And I said, no, I can't really afford to do those anymore because I was paying the band out of my pocket. My session career was paying for that because you don't make money from jam sessions. And he said, okay, well, look, I can give you a couple of gigs instead, but it'll be the late show at Ronnie Scott's, so it's not a high-profile thing. And I jumped at the chance, and I didn't really have a band, and I didn't have the material either. Then he said, and also, we want it to be instrumental. And I'd just written about an EP's worth of vocal tunes. I was like, oh, God. So I put together an instrumental band, and it was a fusion band influenced with funk and influenced with a bit of the John Scofield touch, a little bit of the Mike Stern touch, some Herbie Hancock in there, a bit of Mahavishnu in there, a bit of rock funk mixed in as well. So it's a kind of eclectic fusion, not dry, kind of very technical fusion, but more kind of guttural, a lot of jamming. And it went down really well. So we were doing that from 21, our first gigs, to this July, just gone, 2024, was our last late show at Ronnie Scott's for the time being. So we did it for, coming on 3 and a bit years after I lost some of the best session bookings that I'd had. I ended up with my own band playing at Ronnie Scott's every night for 3 years. I mean, not every night, every month, but yeah, I mean, it's quite a good compensation prize, I'd say.
I definitely think you got a bonus there. I definitely think you got a bonus.
Yeah, I've got a lot to thank them for. It really gave me a boost, and also playing to an audience that were not paying to see us, because we were playing to the late show, which was members and people who just wanted to go to Ronnie Scott's at midnight, and we would finish at 2:30 or something in the morning, and it was great. But I also had the vocal band cooking, which is the thing I'd been doing in lockdown, writing that vocal music. And so the last 2 years we've been recording this album, and it's nearly finished. So October it will be released. I'm going for an October 30th release, but it might change, but I hope not, because the PR company might say we don't have enough lead time. But I'm planning for it to be available for Christmas. So buy it for your friends and family for Christmas, guys, and help us independent artists.
And let me just say something there, because everyone who sees these knows exactly what she said. Buy it. We talk to a lot of people, and you've got a lot of friends who I'm sure talk about the $32 check they get from Spotify, right? If they're lucky, they get a $32 check.
Yeah.
When you listen to this story and you understand like what happened, you went from having all of this stuff booked. These were going to be solid paychecks, to having to reinvent yourself and start again. Things like Spotify are not going to get you to where you have to be. So please, everyone, when her album comes out, buy it. And the other musicians that we've talked to, buy their album, support them, because without you, they can't do this. There are not many musicians who have reached a level to where money is not a factor and they can just sit around and do whatever they want. Right? This is a living, and I applaud you for your reinvention of yourself. Right?
Thank you.
Because you really, I've watched this happen over the last few years, and I also want to hit on a couple of other things, because like the band, and that's going to be great and successful, and hopefully the next time I'm over, I'll get to finally photograph you doing that, because I love photographing you. But
that'd be great.
Reinvention included online bass lessons. What if I was just decided I wanted to learn bass?
Mm-hmm.
What is that experience of learning from you like? What are you bringing to this experience that's going to help me and really get me to become a proficient bass player? And then don't forget to tell everyone how they find you, because she can use students.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm not taking direct one-to-ones anymore because I have enough, and so I'm now going to be launching an online course, which is going to be a membership community. I think that I don't know how other bass teachers work. I've only had lessons when I was 17. I have a lot of people come through that pick up 1 or 2 lessons. I give them a lot of material. They just go away and they just do that for a year or 2, which is what you can do with my material. I don't advocate weekly lessons. I advocate practicing properly. So, I might do myself a disservice, but I say to them, just book 2 or 3 lessons with me a year. You don't need to, come every month, every week. Just make sure you use the material you get sent. So what I actually do is on my one-to-ones, and I hope to be able to do this on the course as well, and on Zoom calls and stuff. It's called thebassteacher.com. Can you believe thebassteacher.com was available?
How does that happen?
I don't know. That's crazy. I was like, I was talking to somebody saying, if you want to, when you want to start a URL, start a business, you want to tell people in the business name what you do. So you don't want to have to make it, it's not mysterious. You can't be mysterious anymore. You have to be direct. The words have to convey the meaning. So I said, like for instance, I'm going to do my bass course. I wasn't sure what to call it, right? I was saying to my daughter, actually, I've got this bass course. If I wanted to be really obvious, I would call it something like thebassteacher.com. And she went, yeah, okay, I get that because you teach bass. I'm like, yeah, right. And then I just stopped and thought about it. And I thought, hang on a minute. I don't think I've ever seen that URL anywhere. So I just popped it into the search. Not only was it not being used standalone on YouTube, it's not been used online at all. So then I just went to my domain host and bought it just to see if it was available. Yes, the .com was available. I bought it. Immediately became valued at like $1,200 the moment I bought it. It's so bizarre. I mean, I'm not going to sell it, and it's just a valuation. It doesn't mean anything. But it was quite funny. So anyway, what I do when I do the one-to-ones is I do a forensic report on the bass playing. Yeah. I look at their playing. I listen to their sound. I check all the things that I'm looking for. When I think what I consider to be a good bass player, I'm looking for that stuff. And I'll troubleshoot them a bit. So I'll identify where I can hear that they could do an improvement, and it can be a pro as well, to be quite honest. And then you can then go, okay, I can hear or see where you need a little bit of extra work. And so I've broken all of my my teaching into about 14 different subject headings, and in each subject heading there's a whole bunch of apparatus, shall we say, you can apply to tackle a specific problem. Like someone's got funny timing, their timing's not fluid, it's not kind of solid. I've got these specific instructions and practices and training and methodology to get them into a different space with the rhythm. Same with dynamics, same with the tone, touch, techniques. I don't know all techniques. I don't tap, so I don't teach tap. I don't teach double thumbing, although I should do really, because I'm doing a bit of it myself. But so I'm not like an all-encompassing bass player that knows everything. But I would say that no teacher knows everything. But what I can do for people is I can really teach them how to analyze themselves properly and identify their own issues, and then look for ways to fix them.
I think that's fascinating. I've taken lessons at different times throughout my life, but I don't think anyone has ever that has taught me has ever done a root cause analysis. That's what they do in technology, right? That root cause analysis.
Okay.
You want to figure out and get down to into the minutia of things. And I think that would be such a great tool for students, and such a unique opportunity for you to do that for people. So, and let me tell you something. If you decide to get out of if you decide to ever sell that URL, if Sting gets into lessons, make sure you get the highest bid on it, okay? Because you'll get a little payback there. I can't. I own a bunch of URLs. I can't believe that of any of all of them we're not taking. So you are very blessed in that. I'm kind of curious about going back into your career a little bit, and this is not to. This is just one moment. Now, there's a lot out there about you. You've had mammoth performances. I mean, God knows what it was like being out on the road with Robbie Williams during those days. That had to be just off the charts. But for you, what do you feel has been the greatest moment or accomplishment of your career that other people may not have ever noticed, but it meant so much to you that's the one you're proudest of?
Well, you know what? I can't answer that really right now, because I have had a couple of moments. There was one when I was, it was 2006, and I did my first ever 2-hour masterclass in front of a bunch of students at a college. That was a moment for me personally, because I was so terrified of speaking into a microphone, talking to people. I wasn't shy, but I would just die inside a little bit if people looked at me directly. Even after I did gigs like Robbie, I wasn't for that. I wasn't for it. I wasn't for the attention. I didn't want that. I just wanted to play bass. So, I mean, a couple of times on the big stage with Rob, stadium tours and all of that, you've got these massive screens, there's camera guys everywhere, and I'm just doing my thing, right? And then Rob might decide just randomly to come up to me and just sing in my face a bit, because, he does that with all of the band members at various points. The minute that he turns his attention to you as a musician on that stage, all 60,000 people want to know what he's looking at. So, why? Why are you looking at her? So he's standing next to me. I've got the cameras. Excuse me. 1 second. Sorry, I've had 4 hours sleep last night, and it really affects my ability to speak clearly. So when Robbie comes up to you, the minute he comes up to you, the cameras are right on you. So those massive screens, that's your face up there now. And the audience are also looking at you, and you can feel the weight of their hot stare. And I hated it. Wish the ground would swallow me up. Hated it. So I know people probably don't believe me. And they're like, yeah, right, come. You wouldn't be a performer if you didn't want to be looked at. It's like, no. There's two sides to playing an instrument when you are in popular music. There's the instrument, then there's the performance. And the two things do not go together naturally. You might want to play an instrument, but you don't necessarily want to perform. You might want to really perform, but you don't want to practice your instrument. They can get away with it, unfortunately, if they're a good performer. So, you've got to learn both things. And I didn't have the performance side nailed. So when I had to do this masterclass, I was terrified, absolutely terrified, proper sort of fear. And when I got to the end of that, it was a massive achievement, and I just felt so proud of myself. But the reason why I didn't want to necessarily answer that straight away was because I can't say when. But there's a good chance I'm going to be a headline of my own show at, for me, quite a significant venue, and I'm just negotiating right now, so I can't announce it, unfortunately. But
I got my fingers crossed for you. That
is going to be one of those. If anyone asks me a question after that's happened, that will be the moment, because it's going to be my band, my name, my music. I wrote probably about 90% of the lyrics, and most of the music the guys contributed as they do, because they're amazing and I'm very lucky to have them. But it's my baby, and it was something that's been gestating for about, I think I put my first album out in 2003. So and music writing up to that point was happening in the 90s. So a 30-year journey with a massive distraction into session work, which I had no ambition to do at all, just fell into it because people called me and offered me work, and you'd be daft if she said no. I know, I'd rather work in the supermarket, thank you, and I'd want to go on a private jet and tour the world, you know.
Would you like fries with that?
Exactly. So I just said yes and didn't think about it, got distracted off my path, and now I'm back on my path. But there was this 30-year gap, and I'm back on my path, and I'm so excited about it.
I think that's great. And, you know, by the way, I know a great front of house sound guy if you need him for that gig.
Well, yeah, right. And a photographer.
Well, absolutely. I will do my best to be there, but there's the crazy professor of sound that we both know that should definitely be your guy. You know, we have touched this podcast has touched a lot of people worldwide, and a lot of people outside the UK don't understand, or they don't know what it means to receive an MBE, which you have, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Can you tell a little bit about how that all came about and how that felt to you to be recognized that way? Because knowing you and that story you told about being on stage and that uncomfortableness of having 60,000 people, right? But then this is such a singular thing that honors you. Like, what was that all like? And you know.
Well, it was interesting because I got awarded it during lockdown, so I not only had to keep it quiet for a lot longer than you normally have to. They tell you not to even tell your family because they weren't going to announce the recipients. It was the birthday honours of 2020, so I had to keep it quiet. And then the George Floyd event happened and raised people's attention towards, more attention towards discrimination. And then my award was revealed after that point, and I did get a lot of comments about, you know, the negativity associated with being, like a kind of mouthpiece of the empire, because it's a member of British Empire. It's the first step of the honour system, and I was aware of the political situation with that. You know, I was also told that you probably got given that because you were a black woman, and they're trying to make up for being too racist. The establishment doesn't want to be seen to be racist, so they're just going to give them out to black people. And I was just like, okay, so I got awarded it before George Floyd, but that aside, I didn't care about what anyone had to say. It was just coming at me from everywhere, you know, just the criticisms about the colonialist kind of past of Britain and all the rest of it. I have mixed feelings about it. I'm aware of historical wrong. I'm aware of the impact that has had in a negative sense. Stories that others tell us, books I've read, accounts from people directly experiencing racism, my own experiences of racism. And the one thing I cannot kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Somebody will know. But just I can't just make them kind of work together is holding on to the pain of the negative of that story and the positive of my existence only being here because of it. I come from, my parents come from the Caribbean. The British Empire colonised the Caribbean, certain islands, two of which were the islands my parents came from. They met because they came here separately and created me and my siblings. And so I exist as a direct consequence of this colonial system. I know that I could be thinking about what could have happened if Britain hadn't done the things it did in history. But I also know that that's a bit of a waste of time because it's happened and there's no point in really looking back and thinking about what if. I would say that if somebody wants to celebrate your existence for what you do now, say thank you and try and do some good with it. That's what I thought, rather than thinking that it was an endorsement of a system that I didn't approve. Of course I don't approve, but I also don't live in that past. I'm here. I'm going to accept, with gratitude, actually, some acknowledgement for the work that I've done and use it to do something positive, hopefully inspire others. And the main part of accepting that award was actually, my parents would have killed me if I'd said no. I mean,
you can't let them down.
No, they broke their backsides to make it work in Britain. And my mum came from very, very humble.
Where'd your video go?
Oh, it was my battery's running low. My mum came from very humble beginnings, right? She was raised in country, in a shack with corrugated tin roof. You can hear the rain coming down. It sounds like thunder. I slept in that little shack, that lovely little house. Sorry, my gran kept it so nice, but we had an outside shower, outside toilet. It was all of that stuff. And that's how my mum was raised. And she ended up with her own very nice 3-bedroom house, solidly built, back in the Caribbean from the work that she did caring for the elderly on very modest income. But she saved every penny she could and sent it back to get this house built. And there's no way that I was going to not show gratitude for the work that they put in to make their lives work for themselves in the UK. I mean, the arrogance of that for me is astounding. I would say, yeah, whatever. Anyway, I'm better than this award because I don't believe in a colonialist past. I feel like that about it for myself. I know other people hold different opinions, and I'm not saying it's that they should be aligned with mine, but that's how I felt about it. My parents raised me that way, to show gratitude and to be respectful. So I said, thanks very much.
Well, and that respectful piece, I'll it says more about anyone who was a detractor or had a negative sentiment about it. There's a reason you have the background and experience and have performed with the musicians you performed and been chosen to do that. And that is that is an amazing feat of a tremendous career that speaks volumes. And if other people have anything negative to say about it, it has nothing to do with you. It's all about them. So you have done a great job. So your battery may be running low. So I want to turn the corner and kind of start to wrap things up. But I always like to give a little bit of advice to young musicians. Mm-hmm. So the question is, if you could go back and tell your younger starting out self something that you have learned along the way that could have helped you, what would it be?
Never miss an opportunity when it's presented to you. Never miss it. If you can do your best to take advantage of an invitation that's given to you, even if it's just to see what it's like, you can always turn it down after you've tried it out, but don't miss opportunities because they're always in front of you. And a lot of the time, I have to explain to somebody that you've met me, I've spoken to you, I've asked to hear you play, you haven't sent me a link, and you didn't take my number. Are you crazy? If I like somebody's work, I forward it on. I always do. So many musicians that I've met have missed opportunities to connect with someone like me, who actually actively try to hand people gigs. I don't advertise that. I don't say, hey, I'm an agency. I don't take percentages. But it's an opportunity when you meet somebody that's switched on, engaged, offers you an invitation to connect. If you don't take advantage of that, I would question what you think the business is, because the business is about who you know and what people, what you can communicate about what you do. So do they like what you do? Have you got an opportunity presented to you by somebody that you're not taking advantage of? Have you created a space where people can check you out and hear what you're about, so that if you've done a great job, there's a good chance you'll get some work? That's the kind of thing I would say to a musician, a younger musician. And if you mean to general younger people, people with experience around you, they are also opportunities. Sometimes they talk a whole crock of BS. It's up to you to figure out where the gems are, but the gems are always there, nestled in amongst the muck. There'll be a diamond or two. Find them, put them in your pocket, and live by them, because those people have experienced life. They've made a lot of mistakes, but they will have learned some good stuff. And even the guys that you think are assholes will still have something to offer if you just keep your ears open, keep watching and listening, absorbing and learning, and it will help you.
No, that's great advice. Heck, Your phone is running out of power, and I think we could probably spend another hour because I have
We
many more
could.
questions. But look, this has been delightful. When the album comes out, let's maybe we'll do this again, and we can
Sure.
broach into some other areas. Yolanda, I'm so thankful. Everyone, you have just had a great experience. She is a wealth of knowledge, and if the things that you walk away with learning from her today, right? Because she really is a great teacher. Then check her out. Do your research. Go down some musical rabbit holes. Maybe sign up for the new lesson program, and keep an eye out on her because some big things are happening. So buy her music, support her. Yolanda, it's been so great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us here. Thanks to everyone who's watching and supporting us as well. Subscribe. We have so many great stories, and it fills the heart to learn about how people get from this moment they discover music to where they are today. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. It's been a real pleasure, Scott. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks. Good to see you. Good to see you. We'll talk again soon.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye.